story of Mommy and Clyde, a mother-son duo who many believe were romantically involved. In 1998, Sante Kimes plotted to murder and assume the identity of the beloved 82-year-old Manhattan socialite Irene Silverman. Her goal was to appropriate Silverman's $7.7 million apartment complex in Manhattan. Kimes instructed her son Kenny to rent a room in the woman's building. When Silverman was out, the two broke into her apartment complex and rifled through her personal papers in order to figure out how to best take over her property. On July 8th, Kimes relaxed and watched television while her son dragged Silverman into her bedroom. Sante then zapped the victim in the head with a stun gun and commanded Kenny to do it. Kenny strangled Silverman, wrapped her body in several trash bags, loaded her into a duffel bag, and then discarded her remains at an isolated construction site in New Jersey. Little did mother and son know, the FBI was already onto them for check fraud and auto theft. Police in Nevada were after them for suspected arson and insurance fraud. The Los Angeles Police Department wanted them for questioning in the murder of David Kasdan, a 63-year-old businessman who had been shot in the head. The police in the Bahamas had been looking for them in connection with the disappearance of Syed Ahmed, a 46-year-old banker who was last seen with Sante Kimes having dinner in a restaurant. The mother and son were not only responsible for these deaths, but were also believed to have killed 50-year-old lawyer Elmer Holmgren and 62-year-old Jacqueline Levitz. And the motive of all 5 murders is said to be financial gain, which is the primary reason women kill. Kenny allegedly became Sante's full partner in crime a few months before Ahmed disappeared in 1996. So what was up with this mother and son couple? It's a bizarre relationship, said one lawyer after their arrest. There is something there other than mother and son. Indeed, from his earliest days, Kenny was taught to lie and steal on his mother's behalf. And during his college days, the two were rumored to be having incestuous relations. At the very least, it's clear that Sante and Kenny's relationship was emotionally incestuous. Emotional incest refers to inappropriate emotional closeness between a child and parent. It involves parents who lack healthy boundaries, often inadvertently treating their child like a romantic partner. These parents expect the child to meet the emotional needs in the way that an adult should. Without his father in his life, Kenny became overwhelmingly vulnerable to his mother's power. He was a pretty confused young man about his mom, his old roommate said. Mother and son reportedly had horrendous fights, spewing verbal venom at one another, and then they'd make up. He would try to fight back, but inevitably submitted with the words, "Mother is always right." Here is a rare video clip of the mother and son being interviewed, which proves nothing if not strange.
It's very unusual for people charged with murder to sit down and to do an interview before trial. Why are you doing this?
May I answer that?
Sure.
Mr. Croft, the reason why we're doing this before trial is because of the unfair portrayal that's been given about us.
The media has so far portrayed us totally like we are not. We're just a mother and son.
I would say that I'm a son of a very wonderful, beautiful mom. I think she's a beautiful person spiritually and intellectually and physically.
In order to even begin to understand how a mother-son crime coupling could come about like this, we must examine Sante Kimes' past and lineage. In her childhood, Kimes' father abandoned the family, and her mother became a sex worker in order to help with the mounting expenses. The children were all placed in orphanages, and between ages 10 to 12, Kimes wandered the streets of Los Angeles. She was reportedly SA'd by a number of adults around this time, and was once arrested for stealing food. Kimes was adopted by a couple at 13. After her adoption, Kimes did relatively well in school, but was regularly shoplifting and using her adoptive father's credit card without his knowledge. She married a high school boyfriend, Edward Walker, with whom she had her son Kenny. Kimes gradually built up her skills as a con artist and thief, and over 2 decades burned down a number of homes in order to cash in for the insurance claims. She divorced Walker in 1968. In the early 70s, Sante met motel tycoon Kenneth Kimes, and married him when Kenny was 6 years of age. But Kimes was soon arrested on slavery charges. She had fiendishly collected undocumented immigrants from homeless shelters, whom she forced to work as servants in her family's home under the threat of deportation. The same year she got out of prison, her wealthy husband died suddenly. Because she wasn't in his will, she concealed any evidence of his death. She then forged his name on checks and legal docs, and blew through the millions he left behind for his children from his first marriage. To avoid the death penalty, Kenny Kimes agreed to a plea agreement in 2004 and testified against his mother. Beyond describing how and why Kasdan and Silverman were killed, he confessed that Syed Ahmed had been fatally drowned in a bathtub after Ahmed had denied Kimes a loan. His body was reportedly dumped in the ocean, and the Kimeses were never charged for this homicide. Both mother and son were sentenced to life in prison, where Sante later died from natural causes in 2014. According to a forensic psychologist who worked on the case, Kimes exhibited the classic psychopathic personality. No guilt, no conscience, no remorse. He described her as socially charming and arrogant, concluding she feels that everyone is stupid and will do her bidding. Up until her very last breath, Kimes ranted about the unfairness of her legal situation.